The little girl pressed deeper into the forest. The familiar scent of damp earth and the sound of whispering leaves filled the air with life. A curious sight drew her attention. A rather small house built from woven living trees and leaves and roots and branches. That wasn't there before, she thought. She carefully and ever so slowly stepped closer to the wondrous sight. The house was impossibly small, far too tiny for her to fit inside, but perhaps she could open the door and take a peek. More importantly, would she dare? What dangers could lie behind that door? Amidst the tug of war between curiosity and reason happening within her mind, her hand found its way to the wooden knob and twisted it. A satisfying click. The door creaked open, revealing I'm going to show you how to use artificial intelligence, especially ChatGPT and Midjourney, together with Blender to make this type of animation. The first thing you need is the script. You can write a general idea, then use ChatGPT or Gemini and ask it to flesh it out. You'll very quickly notice that they are pretty bad writers, but they do provide good ideas and better ways to say some things. So you can take those, rewrite the script, and then rinse repeat. The point here is for you to create a vision and then use AI to expand on that vision and help you communicate it in a way that's more interesting and compelling. Once you have the script, it's time to record it. I used OBS Studio since I already use it to record these videos, but another good option is Audacity, also free and has a bunch of features to process your audio file. Of course, you could also use an AI voice generator like Murph, Revoicer, or any other, and the truth is that they're getting quite good. Let me show you a sample.
The little girl pressed deeper into the forest. The familiar scent of damp earth and the sound of whispering leaves filled the air with life. A curious sight drew her attention. A rather small house built from woven living trees and leaves and roots and branches. That wasn't there before, she thought. She carefully and ever so slow.
To edit the audio, I used DaVinci Resolve, which is the same software that I use to edit these videos. It has a super powerful free version and honestly it's the only video editing software that you'll ever need. Now once you have the file with the audio, it's time to really get our hands dirty. Midjourney is used through their Discord server. I'm not gonna go into the account creation or setup because I really want to focus on the Blender part and I don't want to make an hour-long video. I have the basic plan that costs $10 a month. And I actually used all of the credits that I had in this project, so I cannot generate any more images, but I can show you what I did. Now, when you have a plan with Midjourney, you get access to the bot, which is great because you don't have to go into these rooms filled with a bunch of people generating random stuff. Here you have your own personal space and no one else is looking at what you're doing. Alright, so this is my workspace and I'm gonna quickly scroll for you to get an idea of the amount of prompts I made. It's a lot, and as good as AI is, you still need to spend a while finding which prompts get you the exact result you're looking for, and often you never even get there, so you need to creatively pivot, and I'll show you a few examples in a minute. The first thing you need to get correctly is the visual style of your project. This is very important because once we get the style, we're gonna use that to generate the rest of the images. I started with these two prompts, a pretty little girl, happy and joyful with a checkered preppy dress. You'll see that this was useless because I did not include that it had to be an illustration, and a whimsical forest, just to begin exploring and feeding my brain with images and different styles. At this point I have an idea in my head of what I want it to look like, but it's not super clear, so these explorations help you to crystallize your vision. Now at that time I thought that this could be it, so I then created a character that went with that style. To do that, you'll write the prompt as you usually do, and then use the parameter for style reference, sref, then the address of the reference image. All of the parameters that you use in the prompts start with 2 hyphens. If the reference image is generated from Midjourney, you can just right-click on it and copy the link. Then you can use that address within the style reference parameter. One thing to note is that the address that I copied of this image, if I paste it here, it's super long. Once you put that into a parameter, Midjourney will shorten that link, and now you can use this as future reference for other images. this is the way we use to keep a consistent style between images. I continued to explore the style for a while until I got something that worked for me. Once I had something close to what I had in mind, I used that style to create a character. You can see here that whenever you're using prompts, if you're getting close to what you had in mind with that prompt, you can just use the prompt again and it will generate a different thing. You always get 4 options, so when you found what you're looking for, you upscale that image and now it's not only larger in size, but we can now copy that link and use that as reference for other images. Now with the project that we're doing, it's a good idea to mention in the prompt that you want a white background so that it's easier for us to remove that background later. Okay, so once we have the character, we're gonna use that image as reference for other poses. For that, we use the parameter for character reference, cref. Then the link to the image. You can also use the character weight parameter CW, then a number between 1 and 100. The higher the number, it will try to make the character look closer to the reference that you gave it, including the clothes. So this is character weight 1 and this is character weight 100. Now you'll of course see that it's not exactly the same character. You'll get different freckles, different hair, different lighting, even different graphic styles. So we just try to get as close to the reference as necessary for the story that we're trying to tell. In fact, try to remember the first time I showed you the video if you noticed that the girl was different in every pose. You'll also get lots of errors like this one where the character has 3 legs or more than 5 fingers on the hands. And if that pose is really good, then you can just edit that out in the photo editing software. Okay, the objective now is to get different expressions and poses depending on your script, a few backgrounds and foregrounds, and any other elements that you might need. The parameter AR lets you change the aspect ratio of the images that you get. I'm using 16:9 for the backgrounds. And for the house, these 2 images were pretty good and I got them on the first try. And in fact, the prompt that I used was taken exactly from the script. Now this is another good example of AI not working properly. I was trying to get the girl to look at the floor with the prompt an illustration of a pretty girl with an expression of intelligent curiosity and interest looking at something interesting she saw on the floor. Full body white background. And she's not looking at the floor. If anything, she's completely looking away from the floor. So I continued looking, more expressions. Again, illustration of a girl looking at the floor, and I was just not getting what I wanted. Here I tried to tell Midjourney, hey, it's looking at an ant. And my idea was that it's obvious that the ant is gonna be on the floor, so maybe I can get something. And again, I was not getting what I wanted, and sometimes it even felt that Midjourney was just trolling me. She's looking completely away from the ant in this one. Then I changed the prompt to spots a shiny thing on the ground. And in fact, here I was getting very close. And now for some reason, Midjourney started giving me images with the girl closing her eyes. So finally I got this and I said, you know what? I was okay with this image and I really didn't want to spend more time. Upscaled it and I think that you get the idea. This can go on for a while until you get enough elements, or in my case, until you run out of credits. Alright, once we've got everything, here comes the not so exciting part of cleaning up the images, fixing any errors, and removing the backgrounds. I use Affinity Photo, and I've mentioned in other videos that I don't like Adobe, and particularly the software subscription model. I like to own my tools, not pay for the privilege of using them, which I think only benefits them. You can also try to use an online tool like Remove BG, or Adobe Express has a Remove Background tool. If you do have the white background, they actually do a pretty good job. This is the Adobe one, and this is the Remove BG one. This one actually looks pretty good, but to download in high resolution you need to pay. So specifically for characters, those might be good options. This is the one that I did manually. You'll see that I removed a lot of these stray hairs because those are very difficult to get correctly. Now characters is one thing, but when you're cleaning foregrounds, that's much more difficult. And for these, you cannot use the online tools because it's not clear what you want the foreground to be. So these pretty much have to be done manually. That's the image, and that's the image with a mask. I also made some leaves. So these are the 3 poses that I used of the girl. And of course, if you look at them like this side by side and paying a lot of attention, you'll note that this dress is completely different from this dress, and here she has freckles and here she doesn't. But when you put all of the elements together, these things are less noticeable. Alright, let's hop into Blender. This is the completed file, and by the way, it's available for purchase for $5, and it includes everything: the cleaned images, the audio, the Blender file, everything if you're curious or you want to do something with it. And yes, all of your purchases and contributions do help a lot to support the channel. The more money that I make from YouTube, the more time I can dedicate to making more and better videos. Consider getting the file, and if you do, thanks. Alright, the first thing is we need to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, Images, Enable Import Images as Planes. Now Shift A, Image, Images as Planes, and here you can just select all of the images and import them. These are the images that I used for the video: 4 backgrounds, 2 foregrounds, the house, 3 poses of the girl, and a bunch of leaves. Note that you can flip the foregrounds, or you can also use just one side, so with some creativity you can get a lot of juice from the foregrounds. Okay, we have our visual assets. Now let's add the audio. Expand your timeline and change it to a video sequencer. My audio is already here, but to add it, you would go to Add, Sound, then select the file and add the sound strip. You'll see that it places the clip on the frame that we're in and on the next available channel. If the region is too small, you won't be able to see it, so just expand it. Here you can move the audio clip by left-clicking and dragging, or by selecting it and pressing G. Of course, this is now duplicated, so I'm just gonna delete it with X. Now, once you have your audio file, if you press spacebar to play the animation, the little girl pressed deeper into the forest. You'll hear the audio. Now we want to make sure that our last frame within the animation covers the whole audio clip. So let me change this to 1000. So the idea is that this lighter gray area should extend to wherever the sound is over. It doesn't need to be exact for now, so let's just make a quick calculation. Let's say that the audio ends here at 55 seconds, and we're at a frame rate of 30 FPS, so 55 times 30 is 1650. We could just do the calculation right here. Next, we need to add markers for each clip. These are super important to organize your work and later on to tell Blender which camera to use for each clip. Since we've already have our audio file, so the idea is that you play it. Little girl pressed deeper into the forest. And at this point, we know that we're gonna change the clip. The camera will cut and will go someplace else. So you can add a marker by pressing M. The name of the marker will be the frame that it's on. To rename the marker, just double click on the arrow. You wanna use short names that indicate what the clip is about, or even the 1 or 2 words that are spoken immediately after. You can use most of the same shortcuts with markers, so G to move it, X to delete it. So for me, the first clip is the little girl walks deeper into the forest. Then the familiar scent of damp earth and leaves and trees. Then a different clip is a curious sight got her attention, a tiny little house made of woven leaves and trees, and so on and so forth. The idea is that each segment will be a different clip. So here, the camera will cut and go to the next one. Now, once all of the markers are set, we can go back to the timeline, make this smaller, and we can just start creating our scenes. I suggest that you add text for each of the clips, and ideally the text should be the same or very close to whatever the marker is, so that you always know what you're working on. I'm gonna bring this back so that you can see what the camera is looking at. Here you should be in material preview so that you can actually see the images. If you go to solid, you won't see anything. So you have your camera. I have a region here where I can see what the camera is seeing, and then you start building your clip. So you have your foregrounds, you have the main character. You could even add more stuff behind the character to make it look better. I'm not gonna do it now. And your background. And then I'm not gonna go in detail, but we have very simple animations. So here we have the camera moving forward. I'm gonna unhide this. Then I move the camera to the side, and I have a barrier here that helps me to make a clean transition to the next clip. So it covers everything, and now we're on the next clip. And I also have a barrier here. It moves away, so this gives me a clean transition. And most of what I did was very simple camera movements and very simple animations of the character. And you'll see that I have a different camera for each clip. I know some people like to use only one camera, so it's up to you. For me, this is the easiest way. You'll see that in the timeline we have different camera icons. They indicate that this particular camera, so Cam 5 here, is bound to this marker. At that point, this camera will become the active camera. And we can see that it's active by looking at the triangle that points up. If it's solid black, this is the active camera, which should be because it's bound to this marker. As soon as we pass this marker, it becomes inactive. Now if we go here, this camera Cam 5 is now the active camera. To bind a camera to a marker, you first need to make whatever camera you want to bind the active one by pressing on the green icon on the camera. So let's say I wanted to have camera 6 as the active camera here, so I would make that the active camera and then press Ctrl B. Now cam 6 is the active camera in this marker. If you do that where there is no marker, it will create a new marker and bind the camera to that new marker. If I go to the marker, you can see here the text information, these brackets. It means that there's a marker and the marker has no name. We could change the name by double clicking on the camera, marker temp. And now it has a name. And if you are on a marker, when you press Ctrl B, it will bind the camera to that marker. You'll see that it's still there, but we can no longer see the name of the marker here. Now, I don't know why they chose to make the name of the marker no longer visible once you bind a camera. I think there was enough room here, but well, that's what they decided. So if you want to see the name of the markers, you have two options. You either have different markers for the camera, it's messy, it's disorganized, it's not cool. So probably a better solution would be just to rename the camera. So this is camera 5. I could just go here and rename this to C2 Fam Sent. And I have that here. And with this nomenclature, we would always have the cameras in order. So yeah, I think that's cleaner and better. Now we just make the rest of the clips. I'm not gonna go into that. It's just very simple camera movements. You can even add some 3D elements like this door and the knob, but all of this was just basic keyframe animation. Okay, once all of this is done, we need to light the scene. What I did was just go to shading. Here you go to world. I added here an environment texture. It's this, and I just selected an HDRI. If I go to rendered view, I think that it looks good enough. Optionally, but it does look better, you can select the cameras, go here to the camera settings and all the way down, check the depth of field option. Let me render this to show you how it looks. And you'll see that the foreground and the background is blurred, which not only makes it look more interesting, it also helps to hide some of the editing errors we might have left in here. Now lastly, the render settings. I went with 32 samples because we're rendering 1600 frames, so I didn't want it to take forever. I also unchecked the denoiser because the images have a lot of texture, and the denoiser was actually removing all of that texture, so I just went ahead and turned it off. For this type of project, I actually like the noise. One thing though, you should check the Use Animated Seed button. This changes the pattern of the noise each frame, and for this application, it makes it less noticeable. Then go all the way down, and in Performance, check Persistent Data. When you're rendering animations, it takes the data of a rendered frame and uses it for the next render. Now the last thing, once you've got everything set up, is you go all the way to the beginning and play the animation here with a little and check that everything is working properly. You don't want to find mistakes after you've rendered the thing. Now, once you're sure everything is good, make sure you click on render animation and then go to the gym or to cook something because it'll take a while. Alright, that's it for today's video. I'm Dude Blender. Happy blending.